Behind me here, is the very world famous London Palladium. It is the theatre of theatres. It's like the epicentre of everything that you want to achieve if you are in the world of show business. It's as simple as that. I've been lucky enough to appear on that stage. Terrifically frightening, exhilarating, everything that you could imagine it you wanted it to be. It was the dream. When you got the stage newspaper when you were growing up, you kind of looked at that and thought, who's on there? Could I ever get there? What would that be like? And of course, when you walk through that stage door, a little bit like appearing on Broadway, which, without boasting, I've also done, it's terrifying because you are walking in the footsteps of greats, quite frankly. Everybody who's anybody. Jack Benny, Frank Sinatra, Liza Minnelli, Shirley MacLaine, everybody who's got talent has appeared on that stage. Some say, some without talent. Yes, you might be looking at me, of course. But what's fascinating, I find, is as you go around London, and this is a thing that I like to share with you, is like, whether it's you that's moved on or whether the place has moved on. And as you can see from the London Palladium, it was one of those places that literally, as I said, every Royal Variety performance that ever came from here was exciting because Her Majesty the Queen would turn up and senior members of the British monarchy. There was a wonderful voiceover, and the biggest stars literally were the starry night of a Royal Variety performance. I've interviewed many people on the stage, in the bar areas, backstage in the dressing rooms, and it was always a thrill to go down that long narrow way into the stage door area. They've sealed all that off now, right? Like they have done with the box office. Now currently this theatre is owned by LW Theatres, that is Lloyd Webber Theatres. And it's quite sad in a sense because, everything has to move on, I get that, but it's now all digital screens. Do you remember when theatre had those massive placards of wonderful big life-size structures of the things, of the events that were there currently performing? Right now on these screens you've got shows for next year. That's how little in use this theatre is. The next big event that they can look forward to is, well, one some people might say a rather choice cut in itself. Evita, the brilliant musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber, with lyrics by equally the wonderful Sir Tim Rice. The problem is that it stars Rachel Zegler. She, of course, of the infamous Snow White film for Disney, which was one of the biggest box office bombs, well, in history, quite frankly, and all down to Miss Zegler's feisty response to how she wanted to play the iconic character. Nothing like the 1937 event, of course, which, well, the prince saved her, didn't he, and everything like that. She wasn't having any of that. Consequently, they stayed away in their droves. How's it doing right now? Well, apparently there's still plenty of seats available, but that's by the by. When you look at it, as I said, I wanted to ask you this. Is this the same thing or is it time? Have we moved on? Does this place now not look as exciting? If you were a performer, do you still aspire to appear on here? For me, there's a certain thing that happens when you go back to a theatre, particularly as I've appeared, wonderfully lucky to appear in most of the major theatres up and down the United Kingdom. The first thing you notice when you go back is how small they are. You thought they were huge or, whatever, but it's your fear, isn't it? But what you do remember was their imposing facade and how wonderful they were. Particularly these Frank Matcham developed and designed wonderful architectural pieces of, well, just splendour. They were magnificent. Now, of course, the London Palladium remains magnificent and the inside, thankfully all refurbished at great expense by Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber. But it's the outside that gets people in. And as you can see, wandering up and down London right now, quite frankly, you can see there's a lack of money and there's no queues at the box office and there's certainly nobody asking questions about what's coming up. Now, you could say, oh, Neil, they book everything online. You don't see things like that anymore. I'm sure you don't. But hasn't that also taken away a lot of the excitement too? If you can, and you ever have, let me know what show that you saw at this world famous venue here in the very heart of London. And do you feel like me that some of the glitz, glamour and excitement of entertainment has simply been wiped away in the throes of digital screens and faceless people in box offices? Wasn't it fun clutching your tickets as you walked back out of the box office, knowing that you were in for a very special matinee, or indeed wonderful night, at a great theatre like the London Palladium? Neil Sean, Argyle Street, London.